we get the CEO of the company and the janitor of the company come to the same build site and are equals. And most of the time the CEO is actually behind. He's the one trying, like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm used to wearing a suit, and the janitor's like, hey, bub, let me show you how to do this.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. This is the second part of my two-part interview with Adam Feldman, Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Northern Saratoga, Warren, and Washington counties in upstate New York. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. So, COVID has made things different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Do you imagine that more people working from home will make it easier or more difficult for people to become homeowners? I hear that the real estate market around here is extremely active with people moving from the New York metro area. Do you think rural areas like upstate New York are likely to benefit from people leaving cities, or will it just make housing less affordable?
Both. Yeah. So bringing in talent into the rural community, New York City talent especially, will add a lot of value to our community. When you work New York City, I lived there for almost a decade. It's intense. You arrive I'm relatively type A. I arrived, and I was okay at school or whatever. I did fine, and I got there. I was the bottom of the food chain. Of all the type A's, I was not type A enough. Didn't go to an Ivy League school. I went to a decent liberal arts school, but it's intense. And so you need to bring your A game every day, or you get run over. And so you learn a lot when you're forced to be pushed that way, and you grow and you mature and you learn how things work, and when you improve. And so to bring all those skill sets upstate, I think it's an amazing opportunity. And so we've seen a lot of talent arrive recently from the city, and I'm super excited. But at the same time, the opposite is we already had a limited housing supply. They're absorbing all of those homes and buying all of that land and using all of the materials. So real estate up here probably jumped 40% in the past 9 months.
That's crazy, Adam.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. So, and everyone's like, oh, I'm not going to buy now. It's going to be better a year from now. I'm like, no, you're wrong. It's not.
I think this has changed things for a long time, maybe forever.
My opinion is, and it's just an opinion, is that it's forever. It's permanent. What I'm hopeful actually is that a lot of those old commercial spaces in the cities are going to turn into residential spaces. And I've been hearing through the grapevine that may be occurring because people aren't going back to their offices as that's never happening again. Cities will always be vibrant and people are always going to love to go to the big cities, but I don't think they're going to be the hubs of corporate as they ever used to be. So again, it's pros and cons.
Do you stay in touch with any of your former colleagues from the investment banking business?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, what are they doing?
Oh, they're killing it. I mean, like this is an economy of two worlds, and I get to see both. And so,
are they going to an office every day? Are they working from home? Do they have any interest in going back to an office?
No. I mean, my better example, because I can give lots of intimate details, is my sister and her husband. He works for Oculus, which is a Facebook 3D game, the thing you wear over your eyes. So he's an Oculus engineer, and she works in the tech space. They live in a fancy apartment in San Francisco, and where there's a disaster of housing.
There's no housing, right?
There's no housing. Yeah. But they've already Facebook basically said, don't come back in 2021. Like, you're welcome to come back if you want, but we know you're not. So it's, they actually, cause I have a little niece that's now probably 6 months old. So it's a COVID baby. And, they ended up, temporarily moving to Pennsylvania next to my parents so they could, cause they were just trapped in a 1-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. Like, could barely get outside.
Yeah, and when you're working and have a baby, you need some help.
Yeah. Not only you need help, but you need space. So it was. So they're renting a house pretty close to where my mom is, and at least get outside but I don't think they're going to be going back to their office almost ever.
Wow. Will they go back to the Bay Area, or will they stay closer to your mom?
No, I think they're going to go back to the Bay Area. I mean, the weather's better, so.
Way.
Yeah. And if you can afford it, it's a great place to live. So, but back to that point earlier, like the world, it's two worlds. It's the world. I can quarantine in my big house. I can work in my big house. I have great Wi-Fi in my big house, and my kids have a computer so they can learn at this big house. All of those people are killing it. The stock market's up. I mean, they are thriving. Might of them might be getting sick of each other because they're stuck in their same house, and there might be some mental strains. And I have found that people are uncomfortable talking about all of the positive things during COVID because it's sensitive and there's a lot of people are hurting. But no, people have more money than they've ever had. They didn't go on vacation this past year, and so everyone's doing renovations. So I'm sure all your renovation and your "How do I put on a new deck" podcast, everybody wants to listen to those.
Yeah.
But now I take the opposite end of the spectrum, which tends to be the Habitat families. I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. I work at the local coffee shop. I work at the daycare center. I work in a call center. I make $40,000 a year if I'm lucky, and I don't have a computer. I live in a 1-bedroom. My 3 kids share my same one room. There is no social distancing in my house because it's small. People are telling me I can't go to work. I have no job. I have to wear a mask, and they're angry. And they're getting killed, completely opposite end of the spectrum. And it's sad. I mean, it's really, really hard. And I wish I could offer more solutions, and I work towards them every day, but I know that I'm only one person. So,
yeah, man.
So the Habitat community that I serve, life is hard. And for my friends and old colleagues of New York City, life is easy, relatively speaking. I mean, it's all relative. They
have more options, right?
They have infinitely more options. Yeah. They have options. Other people don't have options. And it's a pretty black and white line. So it's, if you're, and that line is drawn everywhere differently in every community. But it's hard. We live in America. So by default, we have the privilege of working here, living here, having the opportunities that, just being in America gives you a heads up over everybody, practically speaking. It's great. But there's definitely a fine line of it's a struggle because there's a lack of affordable housing. It happens to be the biggest one. If people are spending 50% of their income on housing, every other choice is hard. So,
and folks who live in substandard housing, rental or otherwise, often have crazy utility bills, which we fail to talk about. So it's a double whammy. You're living in this bad housing and you're paying more to heat it or cool it.
Yeah. The mobile homes around here. Most people are jammed into one room because that's all they can afford to heat. Yeah. And you look at the door and you can see the cracks. You can see outside. So it's, we've recently hired Myron Ferguson. Some of you probably know him. He's that drywall guy.
Anyone who's familiar with the Fine Homebuilding brand knows Myron Ferguson.
Yeah. So Myron is our new construction manager. I convinced him to retire, so he's not doing drywall 100% of the time because he's sick of being up in the attic. Though he did text me today saying, "Adam, I'm hot. I'm up in the attic. I wasn't supposed to be doing this anymore," because he is so sensitive to energy efficiency. Is that, he's doing all this fancy schmancy insulation stuff that we've never done in a Habitat house before, but because he's so skilled and can do it affordably, we're able to fit it into the budget.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know he had changed careers. How'd you convince him to do that?
Yeah, well, I was joking around earlier with him about saying that I'm going to be the least skilled construction person ever on this podcast. I know nothing. And not afraid to admit it. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm good at business, because I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not. And I know I'm good at the finance side and the storytelling. But I really need on my team an expert builder. And so Myron and I have known each other probably 20 years, give or take. We've run together We trail run together.
Did you guys meet at Habitat? It doesn't sound like it because you haven't been there that long.
No. His daughter and my wife are best friends from high school, or
That's
from really
cool.
elementary school. Yeah, so my wife grew up with Myron as almost as an uncle. So she's, my wife's, I don't know, 36, so they've known each other for 30 plus years. And so, I see Myron at all the birthday parties, at the, graduations and whatever, all the family events. And then we realized we both like to trail run. So we've run together a few times. And when we were looking for a construction person, I was like, Myron, we're getting coffee, because he's a coffee nut. Bought him coffee. Just buy Myron a coffee and you get him to do anything. And
I got to remember that. I'm going to put that in my toolkit.
Yeah. And I said, Myron, I see you climbing up in the attics and doing sheetrock work, and I know you're an expert and blah, blah, blah. But wouldn't it be easier just to get volunteers to do that? And I also happen to know his wife. So I texted his wife and was like, I'm hiring Myron. And she encouraged she runs the show at that house. So,
in most homes, right?
Yeah. So I was able to convince Myron to retire. Though he does joke around that he works harder now than he did in his old business.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, but it's funny because I am his first boss in 40 years.
How's that working out for you two?
Good. I just tell him, Myron, you build me a house, stay within budget, and I will leave you alone.
That's the best kind of boss, man.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I trust Myron so much that I could hand him, the money for I could just literally put it in his own bank account. He would return me the change and hand the keys over to the family, and I wouldn't have to talk to him for 6 months. That's how trustworthy of a human being he is.
I wish I could say my Habitat affiliate worked with such smooth relations between administration and the construction staff.
Well, the key to keeping it smooth is not getting involved.
I couldn't convince my bosses of that.
Yeah.
So we've talked a number of times on the regular Fine Homebuilding podcast about Habitat Restores. Can you, and your affiliate has one, can you tell me what they are and what you guys do there?
Yeah, that's great. So when I started and I was the only employee, I was like, all right, how do we make this sustainable? How do we lean on markets to make my job easier and us support more people? And so the Habitat for Humanity Restores is Habitat's largest fundraising tool.
Is that right? Even more than corporate and private and church donations?
Well, I would say at probably collectively so if you're in New York City and you're in San Francisco, it's not like that at all. But so if you take out all the big city players and you just focus on the rural or sort of suburban ones, I would say the Restore is actually the dominant cash flow.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So
tell us what it is, though. So it's used in unwanted building stuff, right? And I saw you guys had furniture and all kinds of things.
Yeah. So each Restore does kind of its own little thing, but the short version is we collect donations from the community, housing related. How do I build a house? How do I decorate a house? We come to your house, we pick it up, we write you a little donation receipt, we bring it back to our Restore, we clean it off and put a price tag on it. And we sell it, and 100% of the proceeds go right back into the community to build affordable homes.
Is the Restore staffed with paid staff, or are they volunteers who are running the store?
Mix. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to run
you
can't, in my opinion, you can't run a business with 100% volunteers. You can't. It's a long-term, sustainable, successful. It's hard to grow. You can probably do it. It's just really hard to grow that way. Yeah, and so we have a Restore manager, paid, assistant manager, paid, truck driver, paid, sales force, paid. And then there's probably, in addition to that, another 4 to 6 volunteers that are there per day. So it's probably 40% paid, 60%. And, our Restore from day one was profitable. So right away, you made a donation, that donation got priced, sold, and it went immediately back into build a house. So right back into the community. And it's great because we have some builders that we work with. And so if you're a builder out there listening and you're especially if you're doing a new kitchen and you're like, what do I do with all these old cabinets? They're so beautiful. Just Google Restore wherever you are. And the one will come up and they will come to your house, pick those cabinets up, just put them in the garage or leave them in the living room or whatever, and they will bring them to the restore, clean them up, and sell them. And they sell fast. And we don't, it tends to be an environmental strategy. So one of my other employees actually applied to be in the restore because she was so obsessed with reuse. There's recycle and reuse. She was like, I saw you open the restore. I don't have any retail skills, but I need to work in this place because I just so believe in reuse. We ended up hiring as our family selection person because she was just so passionate.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I joke around that when we first opened the restore, we kept, I'm blanking out on the number because it was 4 years ago. But I think we kept 10,000 items out of the dump by reusing them in the community, supporting lower income families who needed things. We get what many people would say is a brand new bed set or a brand new kitchen or a brand new couch. It feels brand new to them. That would be $3,000. We sell it for $300.
Yeah.
And so it supports the lower income families. It's the beautiful stuff. We keep things out of the dump, so it's super eco-friendly, and it's great for the economy because we immediately respend the money on local contractors. So it's like, hey, look, contractor Joe, like next time you're doing the kitchen, give us a call. We'll come and pick it up. And then guess who we're going to hire when we need to sub out some of our work at our build? Oh, someone we have a relationship with who we trust.
Sure. Speaking of which, what home building projects do you currently have in the pipeline? What's next for your affiliate?
Yeah, so right now we're doing a revitalization on a street in Glens Falls. It's a partnership with the city, a new partnership. They have about 50 what we call zombie homes, which are deserted, blighted. They basically ruin the entire community because they basically increase crime and lower home values. And so we want it to be
and they're not making any money on taxes. It's just, they're just sitting there creating a problem.
Correct. Yep. And so we said, we want to be partners with the community. How can we help the community? And we recognized that was a big problem. And so we went to the city and said, you sell us one of these lots, on the, at a good price, and we will either renovate it or demo it and build a new home. And so we were able to secure 2 lots, one with an old asbestos-ridden home that we demoed. The other one was an empty lot with just trees and rubbish that we ended up subdividing. And so now we have 3 total lots. And the first home we're building right now is it's by far the most expensive house we've built because of COVID, and it's also for 8 people. It's
wow. 4-bedroom?
Yep, 4-bedroom. Yep, family of 6 kids. And the 6th child was born with some disabilities, and so we're doing handicap accessible right out of the gates. So we're building a ramp. We put the parents' bedroom and her bedroom on this first floor, so she'll never have to manage stairs. Handicap accessible bathrooms on that first floor, and then the other kids are on the other floor. So it's super exciting, and they're living right now in a single wild mobile home. And for the first 6 months of their daughter's life, the kids would be playing and they'd like knock out her IV and they'd have to go to the emergency room because there's just no room.
Right.
Like she's living in the living room with it, with her. So that's sort of our go-to, our standard sort of when you think, if you're listening out there, you think habitat, that's what exactly what it looks like. But behind the scenes, we are looking right now to purchase 36 acres with a for-profit developer to build. We're considering zoning right now, but the goal is 36 units, 24 market rate, and 12 affordable. Ideally, in most cases, you're not going to know the difference. Whose is whose, what's is what's. And those 24 market rate units are going to subsidize the 12 units. And so usually to get a quarter acre in Saratoga Springs is going to cost you around $125,000 just to buy a quarter acre build ready land. And with this partnership, we're going to be able to probably buy those for $15,000. So basically a 90% discount through the partnership that we're developing. And the third party is a church. And so it's right now it's owned by a church. And so they're the third partner, and we're going to help renovate some of this church. The church is going to carve out about 15 of those 36 acres to maintain a permanent camp that's been in existence for about 100 years in Saratoga Springs. that, they use this camp retreats and church.
Like a revival camp, I think I've heard them described as, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So as part of this deal, the local church is going to end up owning that land and get $100,000 or so of seed capital. Habitat's going to get 12 affordable homes at really affordable lot pricing. And the developer is going to make, his return on investment on his 24 market rate units, and everyone wins and everyone's happy. The government's happy, the local government's super happy. We're going to do a PUD, and they're super supportive, and they're like, Adam, like, submit the paperwork already. Like, we just want to say yes.
Is that typical, or do you have to convince local officials that this is a good idea more commonly?
Yeah. So in our community, because it's depends whose perspective you're taking. Some people will say, God, not another condo. Like, it's just condo. Because we're in a tourist town and people just own it as second homes, or people own it as, and the developers are like, hell yeah, condos. I'm getting rich. And so in general, our local community we're sick of condos. We want affordable housing. But in many communities, it's the opposite. We wish we had developers coming. So it depends. So in our community, it was that when a developer comes to the table and asks for a PUD, it's an uphill battle. There's a lot of.
You'll have to tell us what a PUD is, because I don't know.
Yeah. The short version is you get to trump code to build whatever the hell you want.
You mean more units than would be typically allowed by zoning?
Correct. Yeah, that's the short version. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. You get custom zoning. So you go and you propose, like, this is designed typically for quarter-acre lots and this kind of streets and these kind of lamps, and you just say, the hell with all that. I want to build this custom community over these 36 acres, and this is what it's going to look like, and this is why it's different than your current zoning, and this is why it's good for the community. And usually when a developer comes, like, that could be a 2 to 3 year process in our community to earn that, because I've spent the past 5 years developing relationships with the local community leaders. Every opportunity I get, I talk to our local politicians. When I come to the table, they're like, Adam, I trust. I know the work he does. I know the community partners he brings to the table. I know that all these corporate leaders are going to show up because they're my corporate donors, and I want to talk to those corporate donors as the politician. And not to mention the Habitat for Humanity brand is so damn powerful that they welcome us to the table, and that takes work, years of work.
How do you think? Why has Habitat for Humanity been so successful? I mean, it's not that old of an organization. I think the mid 80s or the early 80s was when it started. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. We've been around for 40 years. So I think, well, I don't know if your heart is sort of in a tough place because of what you saw at the Capitol over the past couple of days, and you realize that there's a lot of divisiveness in our country. The world of Habitat is completely the opposite. I can go into my rural community where it's 100% Republican and talk about Habitat, and I get a standing ovation because we provide opportunity for families to succeed on their own as independent thinkers, independent doers, and then I get the hell out of the way. They love that. I mean, that's right up their alley. And then I can go downtown, talk to very progressive leaders and say, this is the support we provide, the education we provide, the extra work that we provide, the hope that we do, the communication tools that we use to support the same people. It's literally the exact same story, both ends of the market, both ends of the political spectrum. Everybody loves what we do. And so that's one thing. Literally what we do just resonates with everybody. Two is on the Habitat build site, because it's a community build, we get the CEO of the company and the janitor of the company come to the same build site and are equals. And most of the time the CEO is actually behind. He's the one trying, like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I'm used to wearing a suit, and the janitor's like, hey, bub, let me show you how to do this. And they are treated equally and fairly and as humanly as possible. And so it brings out the best of everyone every day. And I know I see it, people are always stressed about the national news, and they get to I take them out for coffee or whatever to talk about Habitat, and they bring this load of stress. And I'm like, well, let me tell you what I see every day. People across all colors, all socioeconomic status, all abilities, and we all work together. We all have a common bond as humans, and habitat allows people to do that. And I really think that is the binding force for what we do. Like, it
Well
allows us to
said.
be so successful.
Well said.
Thank you.
So this is my favorite part of the show, man.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about your own house? And do you have any lingering problems you're either happily or unhappily ignoring?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is I'm an idiot when it comes to construction. So I'm sure if my wife was on here, she'd be like, yeah, he's ignoring all of these things, and all of these things are lingering. But sometimes it's good to be naive. I'm sure there's plenty of things lingering. I just don't know what they are. But I've been blessed with friends like Myron who can come and help me out. And my father-in-law he's a retired electric union guy. And so he's super skilled. He's teaching my son. So I think the construction gene will just be skip generation. And
how old is your son?
He's 4.
Is he showing any aptitude to being an electrician at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny, like I am smart enough to know that I need to pay a tech to come and review and clean my HVAC system every year. Like, I get it. Like, I know the rules. I just know that, and I also know that I'm not good at doing that stuff. And so when he was 2, the tech came down, and as a 2-year-old, he sat there for probably a half an hour and just watched, engulfed, asked questions. What's this tool? Why are you doing that? What's this? What's this? I personally am naturally a very curious person. I love hearing what other people are doing, what they're working on, what people say, like, well, like, Adam, what do you do? And I just say, I just find other passionate people and I bring them into my circle. Like, that's what I love to do. I don't care what the topic is. If you are passionate about anything, I will basically like you. It really resonates with me. And so I'm always curious, and I really put a lot of effort into passing that on to both of them. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So they're both quite curious, ask lots of questions. And, I encourage them to play with things with their hands and build things. I got Legos and, ironically, this morning, COVID shut down my kids' school, which was quite frustrating.
I'm sorry for you and them.
Yeah. And so, because I'm kind of a go-getter, as you probably can tell,
I wouldn't have noticed, man.
Yeah. I reached out to all of the parents of the preschool. There's about 30 kids. And I reached out to all of them and said, I'm going to form a pod for anyone who's interested. And I will just write the own curriculum, and I will find the place, and I'll find the teacher. Like, we're just going to do preschool on our own. And so I hired a teacher for every day, and then a parent volunteer rotates every day. And so we have 7 kids in that little pod, and we just maintain the routine. We allow people to go to work. We allow the kids to keep learning and engaging. And so today, my teacher wasn't available. So I actually was a preschool teacher this morning. It's kind of hard to believe, but
that's got to be way harder than being a Habitat for Humanity executive director. I got to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but the thing is, I treat Habitat and parenting and preschool teacher and my whole life kind of the same way. Like, my general philosophy is, my goal is to create a framework for other people to be successful in and then get out of the way. And so that's how I treat Habitat. That's how I treat my family, Habitat partner families. That's how I treat my parenting. And so as long as we prepped the preschool room, we just brought toys in, Legos, opportunities for the kids to engage and to play. And then I tell the other parent, like, all right, now do nothing. Like, you just become an active listener and engage as needed, but you're not here to necessarily teach. They're going to teach themselves. Just put 10 Legos in front of kids and you will just see what happens. Just get out of the way. And so today we went on a journey to a local park, and, it's a park my son's been to a while, but the other kids have not. And there's like a rock wall that's totally not safe. There's 2 inches of snow, and my son just goes to climb it because that's what we always do.
Right.
And so, of course, I brought out the other 4 kids to climb it too. And the other mom volunteer was like freaking out. She's like, Adam, help. So that was my morning.
Adam Feldman, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I have enjoyed it immensely. Is there anything you want to ask or tell our audience? I'm going to ask you first before you answer. How can folks support the mission of your Habitat and Habitat for Humanity International?
Yeah. So if my story has resonated with you, if you sort of like, sort of my vision of how I treat Habitat, I'd love for you to support us locally. Our website's glensfallshabitat.org. There's a little donate tab there, donate cash. I mean, that's going to help. We spend it immediately on a construction worker, that's used, or we're going to send it to, to buy lumber. So that's basically where most of our money goes. If it resonates with you more to support local, and it's true, and I encourage you to do that. Many people say where I live is where I want to invest my money in the world of nonprofit, and how do I support my local community? Just Google Habitat for Humanity, and whichever the closest one is going to pop up. We're all around the country. We're all around the world. Feel free to support your local Habitat for Humanity. I strongly encourage that. If you're sitting here saying, I really resonate with the mission globally, I want to push things in Washington, D.C., and I want to really have an impact sort of at a national level or even a global level, then you go to habitat.org. And most of the work that habitat.org does internationally, that's going to be focused efforts in Washington, D.C. to change rules and to change policies, and also to support sort of our global mission, which we didn't really talk about today, but that's a whole other hour topic. So
anything you want to ask or tell our listeners before we go, Adam?
If you can find someone else who knows less about construction than I do, I'll be impressed. So, good luck, Patrick, and good luck, listeners, and keep supporting your habitats and restores wherever you happen to live.
Thanks, Adam. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much to Adam Feldman for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Adam Feldman, thank you very much. And thank you all for listening. Please stay safe and happy building.
Thanks, guys.
Keep Craft alive, too.